external anatomy begins with the comb and wattle. The chicken's comb and wattle vary in shape and size, and the color and size of these structures are dependent on sex hormones. The purpose of the comb and wattle are most likely ornamental. The earlobe of the chicken is highly coordinated with the color of eggs the chicken will produce. The earlobe is located below the opening of the ear on the side of the head. The oral cavity of chickens contain no teeth, so the food is not ground up before swallowing. The tongue is triangular in shape and has few taste buds. The urogenital gland, or preen gland, is located dorsally at the base of the tail. This gland secretes oil and is distributed throughout the feathers of the bird, which are laid in tracts and are composed of keratin. The major wing muscles are the biceps brachii, a flexor of the wing located ventral to the humerus, and the triceps brachii, a flexor of the shoulder and forearm extensor located on the opposite side of the humerus. The deltoides covers the dorsal shoulder, flexing the shoulder and rotating the wing outward. The superficial pectoral, or pectoralis major, is the largest muscle and is responsible for moving the wing down. The supracoracoides is located deep to the pectoralis major and is responsible for lifting the wing. Moving caudally on the lateral side of the leg are the sartorius, the iliotibialis, a large hip flexor, the semitendinosus, and the lower tibialis anterior. Moving caudally on the medial side of the leg are the sartorius, quadriceps femoris, ambiens, adductor longus, and semimembranosus. Below are the gastrocnemius and the tibialis anterior. The four-chambered heart of the chicken is enclosed in the pericardial sac. The heart rate of a chicken is between 200 and 300 beats per minute. The four chambers of the heart include the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and the left ventricle. The right atrium receives the caudal vena cava and a pair of cranial venae cavae. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood through a single pulmonary vein. The avian heart is similar to its mammalian counterpart, although relative to body size, the avian heart is much larger. The glottis is the opening in the mouth that leads to the trachea. The trachea is located next to the epiglottis in the neck. The trachea has a ribbed wall, while the epiglottis is smooth. The trachea carries air to the lungs. As air travels caudally down the trachea, it reaches the bifurcation that leads to two primary bronchi, which in turn lead to the lungs. At the bifurcation is the cartilaginous syrinx. The syrinx is the source of vocalization and is the avian equivalent to the larynx. Chickens have small lungs that do not expand and are attached to the ribs. Connected to the lungs are air sacs, a pair in the abdominal cavity and two pairs in the cranial and caudal thorax. The air sacs expand and compress, allowing a continuous stream of air to pass in one direction. The avian respiratory system lacks a diaphragm, the intercostal and abdominal muscles being the main muscles for respiration. Respiration is also used to cool the bird as they lack sweat glands.
In the digestive system of chickens, food can take 2 to 24 hours to pass through. The chicken mouth has no lips and no teeth, but a strong beak to crush, tear, and hold food. Its non-muscular tongue is often narrow and triangular with many touch receptors, but very few taste buds. This allows the chicken to distinguish food by the feel of it. Feed enters the muscular tube perpendicular and fairly dorsal to the trachea, called the esophagus. From the esophagus, the food enters the crop, which temporarily stores food. When the food leaves the crop, it travels through the true stomach, called the proventriculus, that secretes HCl, peptic enzymes, and mucus for digestion. After the food is chemically digested in the proventriculus, it travels down to the gizzard, which has a thick, muscular wall with a sandpaper-like inner surface. There are strong contractions of the muscles and the presence of grits to help grind and mix the food. The food then travels through the duodenum, in which chemical secretions from the pancreas, gallbladder, and liver aid in chemical digestion. The pancreas resides in the duodenal loop of the small intestines and has bile ducts that enter the duodenum. The liver is the large four-lobed gland in the abdomen with a dark red color. The gallbladder is the green lobe that is dorsal to the spleen. Food then travels through the small intestines, that includes the jejunum and the ileum, which are posterior to the duodenum. The primary function of the small intestines is the nutrient absorption. The mesentery is not shown, but it fixes the small intestines to the dorsal abdominal wall and supports the mesenteric arteries and veins within the tissues. From the small intestines, the food enters the intestinal ceca, which contains a bacterial population that is important for digestion of plant cellulose. This is also the major site of water reabsorption. The food travels from the intestinal ceca to the large intestine, where the last of water reabsorption occurs. The final stage of the passage of food would be through the cloaca. This is the area where fecal matter exiting the intestines is collected and ejected from the body. This is a picture of the two three-lobed kidneys in the chicken. They are located in the dorsal cavity of the abdomen, and they function to filter waste products from the blood.
Starting on the left side, we have the ovary, which is located in the abdominal cavity on the left side of the pen. It contains large yellow follicles which are arranged in the hierarchy of size. The largest follicle that is called the F1, which is next to ovulate, and the next largest named F2. It also contains small yellow follicles that will continue to grow and replace the hierarchy of large yellow follicles as they ovulate. And the ovary also contains small white follicles, which will replace the small yellow follicles. Continuing on, we have the post-ovulatory follicles seen in the picture that will continue into the infundibulum, which catches the oocyte after ovulation and directs it towards the magnum of the oviduct. The infundibulum is also one of two sites for sperm storage, and the oocyte will remain in the infundibulum for about 15 minutes. Continuing down, we have the magnum, which is a thicker walled part of the oviduct with glands that produce and secrete albumin and other proteins that contribute to the egg. This oocyte stays in this magnum for about 2 hours. Continuing down, we have the isthmus, which is a thinner walled part of the oviduct where the egg membrane is formed, and this oocyte will remain about 1 to 2 hours in the isthmus. Next, we have the shell gland, which is also called the uterus, and is the site of shell formation and pigmentation, and this process takes about 20 hours. Finally, it goes to the vagina, which is a segment of the oviduct between the shell gland and the cloaca. This is also another site where sperm is stored, and it's stored in the tubal glands at the junctions between the vagina and the shell gland. Next, we have the male chicken reproductive system, which is relatively simple. It does not have any seminal vesicles or prostates, but it does have the testes, which is a site of sperm storage, and it is carried out through the vas deferens ready for ejaculation into the hen. The sperm after mating is stored in the folds of the oviduct by the hen and can last as long as 6 days after insemination.